Did you go to the AAA for the maps?
Yes. No. I mean, the record companies gave me the maps and the itinerary and this thing.
The Negro Motorist Green Book.
Yeah, it lists all the places coloreds can stay down south. Like, if, you know, traveling while black.
That's Viggo Mortensen and Linda Cardellini in the Golden Globe-winning movie Green Book. The movie's title is a reference to the real Green Book, a traveler's guide back in a hostile time, which some people still remember all too well. Our cover story is reported by Martha Teichner.
The fabulous Miss Mary Wilson.
Watching Mary Wilson, feeling the love at New York's glamorous Cafe Carlyle, it's hard to imagine what she felt at the age of 19.
But my heart can't take you no more.
A newly minted Supreme, just out of high school, on her first ever road tour with a regular who's who of Motown stars. Stevie Wonder,
I really, really love
Mary Wells, The Temptations, and others. 45 performers traveling by bus, confronted by hate in the still segregated South.
We were getting off the bus, and there were gunshots.
And they were shooting at the bus?
Oh, yeah, we had several holes in the bus. You know, your parents had told you, be careful, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You knew about the segregation. But, I mean, the gunshots sort of brought it right into your face and saying, you could be killed.
strange fruit hanging.
It was this chilling fact of life, the racism that in 1936 inspired the Negro Motorist Green Book. Victor Green, a postal worker who lived in Harlem, began publishing a guide to businesses that welcomed African-American travelers.
You need to be careful on the road. Old Jim Crow won't let people like us stop just anywhere.
In each year's edition, a warning. Carry your Green Book with you. You may need it.
It just makes me wonder and make me think about today.
At the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., visitors can experience the not-so-long-gone era of the Green Book.
I remember as a little child going down south from Detroit, and my parents had to be strategic as to where they stopped.
It was after the Depression, before the war. The auto culture was really burgeoning. There were more jobs for Black people.
Candacy Taylor is a cultural historian whose book about the Green Book will be published this fall.
By the 40s, the second wave of the Great Migration was underway. And so you had 1.5 million Black people leaving the South during that time.
At risk if they owned nice cars.
His dad worked for the railroad, had a good job, and his mother was sitting in the front seat.
Taylor tells the story of her own stepfather's family being stopped and relying on this tried-and-true subterfuge for avoiding trouble.
So the sheriff comes to the door and says, you know, who's this car? Where are you going? Who are these people with you? And his father says, you know, this is my employer's car. He looked to his wife and he said, and she's the maid, and this is her son. And then the next question was, well, where's your hat? Meaning the chauffeur's hat. And he said, it's hanging right in the back, officer.
Essentials for driving in and out of the Jim Crow South, that chauffeur's hat and the Green Book.
The Green Book was like a Bible. You did not leave home without it. I think this was taken in Louisville.
Alice Clay Broadwater relied on it. She was a teacher then, traveling with her lawyer husband and small children between Boston and the South.
Black travelers in those days, in the 50s, had to carry the Green Book if they needed to stay overnight someplace, or if they wanted to know where they could eat.
Unless, of course, there were no Green Book listings en route.
It was not only frightening, it was very unsafe. If you're stopping on the side of the road, you know, you can't really sleep.
So you'd pull off the road to take a nap?
Yes.
Or to sleep?
Yes.
Because there was no place else?
Absolutely.
Get your kicks on Route 66.
Route 66 was a huge hit for Nat King Cole. But here's the irony. For black travelers looking for places to stay along its more than 2,400 miles, good luck. Green Book sites were scarce, so-called sundown towns were plentiful.
You'd see a sign on the way in.
What would it say?
N-word, don't let the sun set on you here. You could have a Green Book, but you could still find yourself in a sundown town at the wrong time, and sometimes you'd be escorted out of town by law enforcement. Sometimes you'd be harassed or chased, or worse.
Often a safe place to stay.
This was one of the rooms?
Yes, this is it.
Was a room in someone's house. Since 2014, this historical marker has stood outside a Green Book-listed tourist home in Columbia, South Carolina.
You've got all kinds of pictures here.
Run by Reggie Scott's mother and aunt.
That's you as
That's
a
me,
kid?
yeah.
89 now, Scott grew up in the Harriet M. Cornwell tourist home and became a musician because of the players who stayed here.
Cab Calloway was my greatest excitement. He came here, I was
And
tripped.
He was here in this house?
Yes, Cab was here.
Wow.
If there's one common denominator we found doing this story, it is the musicians. The unbelievably famous names who were also victims of segregation.
Duke Ellington and Billie Holiday stayed here. A lot of times they were performing downtown where they were welcome to perform but not welcome to stay.
The Rossonian Hotel and Lounge in Denver,
That's amazing.
now undergoing renovation, was one of more than 80 businesses in the area listed in the Green Book.
These places carry a spirit with them, which is why it's so important that they're still here. I was scouting about 30 sites a day.
Candacy Taylor put 23,000 miles on her car during just one of her trips around the country, documenting more than 9,600 of the sites.
If I had to guess, I'd say about at least 85% were black-owned. But there were sites like Charlie's Sandwich Shop in Boston that was in Southie that was owned by a white man.
Charlie Poulos, a Greek immigrant, opened the restaurant in 1927, and with his partner, Christy Mangiarides, served all races, possibly the first restaurant in Boston to do so.
Was there a backlash?
There was, yeah. There was some pushback.
Damian Marcianti bought Charlie's in 2017.
The original owners did not care. They just were welcome to everybody. If you didn't like it, you didn't come in.
It didn't hurt that the Black Pullman Porters Union had its headquarters upstairs. The railroad workers spread the word about Charlie's even before it began listing in the Green Book in 1947. And of course, the jazz greats read their Green Books and came to Charlie's.
Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, Sammy Davis Jr. He used to tap dance out in front of the diner.
As times changed, so did the Green Book. For sale by subscription and at Esso gas stations, in its heyday, it sold 2 million copies a year. But in the 1948 edition, Victor Green wrote, "There will be a day sometime in the near future when this guide will not have to be published. This is when we as a race will have equal opportunities and privileges in the United States."
And then that day comes, and he never lives to see it because he dies in 1960.
In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, mandating the end of segregation. Publication of the Green Book ceased in 1967. It was largely forgotten, its true legacy underestimated.
Walk with me.
It's so important that we look at the Green Book not just as a historic travel guide, not as just something that we needed in the past.
Walk with me.
But what the Green Book teaches us is about the resilience and the courage of what Black people were able to do and accomplish in spite of the circumstances and everything that happened.
Come on and walk with me, Lord.